We can't let the expectations and demands of others take precedence over our own health and well-being and our own needs and desires.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. To my Canadian friends, happy Thanksgiving. It certainly is so important to give thanks for all we have, and to that end, I thank you so much for being here and for supporting this podcast and the positive messages we try to impart to make your life better. I never take that for granted. Today also is a very special episode in honor of this month, which is Menopause Awareness Month, and World Menopause Day, which is held annually on October 18th. This aims to break the taboos and improve women's health and well-being by raising awareness about the symptoms of menopause and the support options available. We talk about transitions in our career and life here, and menopause is certainly a big life transition. To that end, are you aware of how much perimenopause and menopause affects not only your hormones, but nearly every part of your body? In this episode, I speak with the wonderful Kim Hefner, a certified menopause nurse practitioner, who sheds light on how hormonal changes during perimenopause impact not just your mood and energy, but nearly every part of your body, and how you can better navigate these years with the right information and support. In this episode, you'll learn the surprising early signs of perimenopause that most women overlook, discover practical tips for balancing the demands of career, family, and personal well-being during this transition, and understand the benefits of hormone therapy and lifestyle changes in preventing major health risks like heart disease and osteoporosis. So don't miss this episode, my friend. Tune in now to understand how to take charge of your health during these transition years. And don't forget to stay till the end for the key takeaways. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast for women in transition in their careers and life. I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. This week is no exception, and I'm so excited and thrilled to have on the show today Kim Hefner. As a board-certified family nurse practitioner with over 23 years of experience in acute care medicine, Kim dedicated her career to advancing women's health. Her personal journey through perimenopause and menopause inspired a significant career shift, leading Kim to become a certified Menopause Society nurse practitioner. She now runs a telehealth practice focused on treating midlife and menopausal women, empowering them through education and personalized care. Additionally, Kim hosts the popular Midlife Wellness NP podcast, where she shares insights and support for women navigating these critical years. And I was pleased to be on that podcast as well. So I'm so happy to have you here, Kim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So what you do is so really needed and important. So I'm just really excited to get into your story and how you got from where you started. So Kim, you were in, as I mentioned in the introduction, you were in acute care medicine for 23 years. And you had overcome some of your own health struggles. And as a result, you transitioned to focus on perimenopause and menopause. So maybe you could share to the audience what motivated that shift and how does your experience how did it shape your mission and what you're doing to empower women today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like many healthcare providers, when you go through your own struggles, solve your own problems, and heal, you want to help others do the same. And I realized if I was having so many issues with perimenopause as a healthcare provider and lacked the resources and guidance that I needed, so many other women were going through the same thing and lacking what they needed to make these years better. And I also realized that there was a lack of healthcare providers that are trained to provide evidence-based care to perimenopausal and menopausal women. So I decided to get extra training in prescribing hormone therapy and going through the Menopause Society to get board certified in menopause care. And then decided to open my own telehealth practice where I see women all over doing educational only consults. And then I see patients as patients in Missouri and Iowa. So that's how that shift took place. And I now love what I do.
Amazing. It's interesting, isn't it? Often what we go through in our lives, the struggles we go through and the changes, transitions we go through are the driving force behind how we've overcome them and is a driving force behind what we do. And that same thing happened with me. So that's great. And majority of the people who are listening to this podcast are midlife women. And so you are a midlife woman, you're a wife, your mother of four. And we often talk about all the things that we do in our life. And so you kind of understand that the challenges that we face with all these different priorities. And so how do you advise women who come to you perhaps to balance these different roles that we play, while at the same time keeping time for ourselves and our health and our well-being? So is there any tips or you've had or that you advise your clients or patients?
Oh, yeah. I know. Looking back on those years now, I think, what on earth was that? Because it was just a whirlwind. That's the difficult part. We are often in the busiest season of our life, right? We're working full time. We're taking care of a family. Maybe we're a wife, a mom. And many times we're caring for parents, elderly parents, right? So all of this craziness in our life is going on. Yet at the same time, we're experiencing declining and fluctuating hormones that are giving us all of these symptoms, such as sleep disturbances, increased anxiety, racing thoughts, mood changes, and menstrual irregularities. And unfortunately, the stress of our lives are only making our symptoms worse, and we don't even realize that's happening. Mm-hmm. And the changes in our hormones that are going on during these years are making us even less tolerant to the stress. So I think what's important is being educated and having an awareness of these changes that are happening in our body so that we can better guide management during that time. Mm-hmm. And like I was so busy in my life, it didn't even dawn on me that I could be in perimenopause. I just knew perimenopause, by the way, are all the years leading up to your final menstrual cycle, which is menopause. So I didn't even think about that was going on. I just kind of got used to, like many women, just feeling bad, tired all the time, irritable, no libido. Yeah. And at the same time, I was experiencing these menstrual irregularities. So all of that was going on. But the truth of the matter is education really needs to start in a woman's early to mid 30s when these hormonal fluctuations begin so that they can better take care of their bodies and prioritize health practices during these really transitional years and windows of opportunity for disease prevention. And I was in so much stress in my own life during these years that it was truly robbing me of my health. And it took that to realize that nothing and no one is worth losing my health over. And so I did. I made a lot of big changes, leaving that acute care setting at the time and getting out of that stressful environment, mm-hmm. and really having that perspective that we are truly only here on this earth for a temporary time in the big scheme of things. And we don't need to take ourselves and things that don't matter so serious. We can't let the expectations and demands of others take precedence over our own health and well-being and our own needs and desires. So I think there's that. And really, we need to take a good 15 to 30 minutes a day to stay focused on our health and gratitude and what's important to us. And the truth is, if we don't have 15 to 30 minutes a day to do that, then like me, maybe it's time to reevaluate that career. Reevaluate, are you living in alignment with your values? Because for me, that's the dis-ease and the disorder I was experiencing during all of that time was truly just me living out of alignment with my values.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so in line with what I often talk about is that alignment with your values, because there's that sweet spot that if you're not in alignment with that, with those values, then everything kind of, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, right? And I think that's so important. So you said that take things so seriously, one of the things you mentioned, and also that 15 to 30 minutes a day for health and gratitude. And that's what I encourage is just, even if you can carve out that short amount of time, if you can't do that, there's something wrong, right?
Right.
So I know what I kind of suggest to my clients is maybe in the morning, waking up, having some kind of a routine, like whether it's yoga, meditation, walking, just journaling. Is there anything else that you kind of suggest to kind of have that health and gratitude 15 to 30 minutes time frame?
I love all of that. Back in the throes when I was going kind of through hell and back, the thought of meditating never even entered my mind, right? I didn't have time for any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But truly, if you kind of think about it, starting your day off like that and maybe even ending your day off with a little gratitude, it really does change your life. And I'm a big supporter of following your circadian rhythm and getting that early morning sunlight and getting out in nature and just starting your day out like that. It just really is how your body wants to follow its natural rhythm. So like you, I totally agree. I go outside in the morning and I do my routine out there and journal and have my coffee or whatever. And it's a beautiful start to the day. And you're looking around at everything beautiful around you. And it's just a great way to start your day.
I love that. This morning I was feeling I didn't sleep very well last night. I know, I think I was watching the debate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would snap and then this morning I was like, my head was really kind of foggy and I was like, but I said, it was a beautiful day here. So I took a walk and it just changed everything. It just listened to podcasts, just changes your outlook. So I really think that's really important, that circadian rhythm piece.
Oh, it's really one of the most important things we can do for our health. I mean, we talk about hormones, we talk about digestion and gut issues. But the truth of the matter is that's all guided by that 24-hour clock. So start living in alignment with your circadian rhythm. I recommend getting an app and really starting to follow that. And your hormones are going to get better. Your weight's going to get better. Your metabolism, your sleep, you name it. That's truly so important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So Kim, you are a menopause care specialist. So tell our listeners, what are some, when women come to you, what are some of the common misconceptions, maybe incorrect things about menopause and perimenopause that you've encountered in some of your patients? And then I think you also say something, you say that an informed woman is an empowered woman. Mm-hmm. And so tell us a bit about that, and what are some of the things that maybe you can clear up? I know that's probably a long list, but maybe just a few.
Yeah, I think I'll just touch on a few. I think the truth is, the first one is I sort of touched on that menopause just happens when we're old. Like we just wake up at 50 and 51 and boom, we're in menopause. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is those changes that I was talking about start happening with menopause can be, again, as early to mid 30s when our fertility and our ovarian function start to decline. So that is really way back then when that whole process starts to begin. So I think that is quite shocking for a lot of women to realize that those hormonal fluctuations are happening way before we're ever thinking about menopause. And I think the second one is that menopause is just hot flashes and night sweats. That's menopause. Well, that's true. Hot flashes and night sweats, 75 to 80% of women experience that. But there are so many other symptoms, sleep difficulties, mood changes, temporary cognitive changes, and difficulty remembering and concentrating, heart palpitations, breast changes, menstrual hair changes. And it's way more than just hot flashes and night sweats. So, and then even the lesser known symptoms of menopause, women start complaining of joint pain, dry, itchy skin, crawling sensations, and weird stuff like burning mouth and digestive and bloating issues. And there's just so much more to menopause than just hot flashes and night sweats. And I know we're going to talk about maybe some longevity and health strategies, but I think that people don't realize that the truth of the matter is there's so many invisible risks associated with menopause and the decline of our hormones, which I know we're going to get into. But I think that's just the common misperception that, oh, she's just in menopause. She's just having some hot flashes, but it's way deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of those things you listed, yeah, check. But the other thing is some of those things that you mentioned, like what did you say about mouth? What was that?
Yeah, a lot of women have burning mouth.
Burning mouth. I've never. Interesting.
Well, when you learn all of the things that estrogen does for us, and we'll talk a little bit about that, you'll realize once you understand that estrogen is affecting almost every organ and tissue in your body, it starts to make sense why you're having these symptoms. So it's just common misconception. And I think another one that maybe we'll touch on a little bit is that hormone therapy causes cancer.
Yeah.
And I think the Women's Health Initiative studies way back then did a real disservice to women. They only used one form of hormone therapy and did all these studies. And since then, 21 years later, they've reevaluated those studies. And that's just not really true that hormone therapy causes cancer. The truth of the matter is if there's a cancer present already, then hormone therapy can stimulate the growth of that cancer, which is why you want to be real adamant on your screenings. And then there's contraindications that are there. But I think it's just not true that hormone therapy gives you cancer and it should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah. I heard that there was this. It's been debunked. So glad you mentioned that. You talked about how it can happen early, like in the mid-30s, and I was just thinking to myself as you talked about that, is that a lot of women now are having babies later in life, and so this might be a little bit of a surprise to hear that even in the mid-30s that you can start having these symptoms. So it's just a kind of a wake-up call to investigate why you might be having some of these symptoms. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And so you touched in a little bit about longevity, and maybe you could speak to that a bit, in that a lot of people say that longevity is not just eating healthy, right? And but there's other key factors, and I know that that's one of your topics that you like to talk about. So maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
Sure. I think truly we underestimate the power of our mindset and its ability to keep us well. And I know you've probably heard it. I used to hear our mind has the power to make us ill, but it also has the power to make us well. And I believe that. And I'm a big fan of positive self-talk, putting positive things into your brain, your mind, your body believes what we tell it, right? And also, I don't know if remember the quote by Wayne Dyer. It's one of my favorite ones. And it's so true. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I believe that. And when they've looked at studies regarding stress, which stress is responsible probably for 80 to 90% of medical visits, they looked at these studies, all sorts of studies on stress and the impact on the body. And there's the big study they did with caregivers and women experiencing stress who were caregivers. And interestingly, what they found, they studied these women under stress that were caregivers. They looked at markers of lifespan or health span, called telomeres that they shorten as we get older, and we can shorten our lifespan. So what they did is measured those. And the women that were under stress and felt like the stress was impacting their health negatively, they were saying like, the stress is killing me. It's really affecting me. It really was impacting their health negatively. And that was showing up in the telomere shortening. So the women that were under the same amount of stress, but didn't feel like it was impacting their health, it really wasn't impacting their health.
Mhm.
And they've done other studies, the same thing. People that were under an enormous amount of stress and felt the stress was negatively impacting their health, it really was.
Mhm.
And those that did not view stress as impacting their health, they viewed it more as an obstacle or a challenge, something they were going to overcome. It didn't impact their health. And
Mhm.
so I think that really speaks to the power of how we perceive stress, because we all have it, but the way we perceive it can change everything.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're speaking to someone who completely believes in that. It's
Yeah.
the mindset. Our thoughts control things. Our thoughts lead to our emotions, which lead to action or inaction, right? And I think we talked about this perhaps on your podcast about you talking about this the stress and how it releases negative emotions. And I talk about catabolic energy, right? So that's that breaking down energy, which really contributes more and more to stress. And I can see how if that over time, if the stress accumulates or like just gets worse and worse, and it just you don't do anything about it, that can really lead to the telomere shortening or like
Or health,
yeah,
or quality of life. That's
yeah,
right.
and
And also, we might have talked about it on your podcast, the longest study in human health. Did we might have talked about that. The study they did by Harvard, they followed these people their entire life, even beyond, till they died.
Mhm.
And what they found in the longest study on human health was over every other parameter, such as diet and exercise. It was the quality of our relationships
Yeah.
that kept them the healthiest and living the longest. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good clue to us what really should matter in
Yeah.
our life.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That just brings to mind another. It is a study. You may have heard of this concept. It's called the U curve of happiness. Have you? Yeah, yeah. So that at this stage, and like we're in menopause, midlife, there's a study that showed happiness goes as a U shape, and we're at around 50. We're at the bottom, and then if you kind of go up the curve. So I often say, what it's going up from here. It's really about what you want to do. How do you want to live the rest of your life? Like, do you want to live, like you said, like what Wayne Dyer's quote, like, how do you want to perceive your life? How do you want to live it? Do you want to live it under stress, or do you want to enjoy and appreciate every moment now? And that contributes to happiness and also relationships, and all that is part of it. So, I mean, that's a whole other topic, but it just came to my mind in terms of where you are, where you want to be, how do you want to live? Do you want to go up that curve and live a happy life? And these are some tips to do that. So,
And don't wait for a crisis in your
Yes.
health or other things to start making positive changes, because perimenopause, I like to think of perimenopause when everything is kind of crazy, fluctuating hormones, like kind of very turbulent years. And I always say this too shall pass.
yeah,
And eventually you're going to end up in a calmer stage of life. And that's menopause, when things will get better.
Mhm.
So yeah, this too shall pass is a common thing I say about perimenopause. But you're 100% right. And just, again, not waiting to that health crisis to start making positive change, because menopause, as we're going to talk about, really impacts our health and our disease risk. So it's really,
Yeah.
really important to start now prioritizing our.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You also focus on other, I mean, obviously major health concerns. Women especially have heart disease, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's even. And so when patients come to you with these conditions, how do you approach their care? And also, is there ways in which we can actually prevent these conditions?
I think first we need to understand that the symptoms of menopause, definitely the result of our declining hormones, right? Estrogen, progesterone, and even testosterone. Understanding the invisible risks associated with the decline of those hormones, especially estrogen, which is very protective of our heart, our brain, even our blood vessels, our bones, our lungs, our digestive system, skin, genital urinary tract, our metabolism. And again, just understanding that estrogen affects almost every organ and tissue in our body. So when that declines, really, we have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, bone loss, osteoporosis, dementia, Alzheimer's, in sexual dysfunction and frequent urinary tract infections. So that's all an increased risk with the decline of estrogen. But even at that, you'll say, well, then just take estrogen, right? I can say, just take it. Just everybody gets estrogen. But the truth of the matter is, diet and lifestyle need to be foundational to any treatment plan, whether it's hormonal therapy, if you're a good candidate for it, whether it's non-hormonal therapy, because diet and lifestyle is the foundation, which is, healthy diet. I mean, that's, you're going to say, what's healthy? But most study diets are Mediterranean diets and just putting good whole foods into your body that give you life and that do positive functions, make your body function. And when you think about food, that's what it's doing. And if it's not doing that, it's processed food, which isn't really food. So that can kind of help you decide what's healthy and what's not. But with that, making sure you have an adequate protein intake, making sure you have a good enough fiber, 25 grams or more a day, because that can also target that menopausal belly fat that we often deal with. And stress management, like we talked about, maybe having a good practice for that, focusing on sleep, getting sleep. And again, following your circadian rhythm. And what that looks like is keeping a consistent sleep-wake schedule. And I always say, when the sun is up, daytime hours only, and not when the moon is up. So I think that's straight and simple way to live your life. And it doesn't have a bunch of other restrictions and pretty easy to follow. And strength training and incorporating movement every single day. And yes, if you're a candidate for hormone therapy, bioidentical hormones, similar structure to your body, I say yes, and initiate them early, because the research shows even when you initiate them in perimenopause, they can have a better protection for your heart and your blood vessels and your bones and your brain. And the Menopause Society and other medical societies say they've come to a conclusion and a recommendation that when hormone therapy is initiated within 10 years of menopause or younger than 60, all of the benefits of hormone therapy outweigh the risk during that time. So if that's something that speaks to you, you want to consider hormone therapy, I say don't wait. Get started early with it. And if hormone therapy is not an option, don't be discouraged and think, oh, great, now I'm going to get all these diseases. Because like I said, diet and lifestyle are foundational for every therapy that we can give you. So I think that's really important to think about as far as diet and lifestyle. And then what I do is I do a lot of advanced screenings on my patients that look for their cardiovascular risks. So some advanced lipid testing, looking at things like ApoB and lipoprotein A. They're just some advanced cardiovascular markers, and metabolic and inflammatory markers, and doing what's called a calcium CT score of the heart. It's a simple test that can look at the blood vessels to your heart. It takes about 10 minutes. Not very expensive, but gives you a whole lot of information that can guide treatment. And so just knowing your risks. Do you have a high family history of early cardiovascular death? Do you have Alzheimer's in your family history? And so I always say the greater your risk factors, the greater your prevention strategy needs to be.
And that seems to me, thank you so much for sharing that great information. It seems to me all of this is really around prevention and like being aware, and like you said earlier, educated, like know your risks, take these tests that are available if you do have the family history. And it's really interesting. I never really thought of it that way, that declining estrogen affects so many organs in our body. And I know that, but when you say it like that, it's really kind of hits it home. I had a question. You mentioned bioidentical hormones, hormone therapy. I know there's always kind of been maybe a debate on whether that's bioidenticals versus just regular hormone therapies. I know it's probably a little off topic, but that popped into my head as being something that maybe some women are questioning. Perhaps you could share your
Oh,
opinion.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the hormones that were used back in the Women's Health Initiative back in 2001 were called synthetic hormones. Those were hormones that were not chemically structured to what our ovaries normally produce. So the Premarin was a combination of estrogens, different estrogens that were derived from pregnant mare horses. And the progestin or the progesterone, both the estrogen and progesterone control our menstrual cycle, right? In the normal reproductive cycle. So what they did is they took synthetic or not like our body produces and made estrogens and progesterones and gave it to menopausal women for symptom management. And then they noticed, wow, I mean, women were healthier, not getting as many diseases. So that prompted them to maybe do those studies and find out, is it healthy? Can we give this for preventing diseases as well as symptoms? So that's synthetic hormones. They are not similar to what our body produces. They can still be prescribed. They're still FDA approved to be used. It's just nowadays there's a practice where we typically start with estradiol that is similarly structured to what our ovaries produced during that time, and a progesterone that is similar structured to what our own ovaries produced. It's not that there's not risks with both. There's risks with both, and there's benefits with both. But it's just knowing the difference makes a difference so that you know what you're putting in your body. And nowadays, we typically go with the similarly structured hormones over the synthetic hormones.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Especially because of the synthetic hormones were used in the study. So that's really important. Wow. Great information.
And what was really missed is right in the limitations area of the study, even back in the time, it said one of the biggest limitations of that study was that they only used one type of hormone regimen. And it would have possibly produced different results if they would have used bioidentical estradiol and progesterone, more a different regimen. So I think that's interesting looking back, all of the scary things that went on with that study. And a big limitation was they only used one hormone regimen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting how that got its popularity despite flaws, it seems.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and just knowing that you don't remember how I talked about how symptoms are starting early. So sometimes perimenopause, women are having all of these symptoms and they don't think they can start hormone therapy. And the truth of the matter is you really can start hormone therapy in perimenopause, depending on what stage of perimenopause you are in, can help guide what hormone would be best to replace at that time. And then starting early and not waiting till symptoms are so severe and you're struggling to get started. It's like you're having all these symptoms, and that's an option for you if you don't have any contraindications to hormone therapy, such as active hormone-dependent cancers or abnormal uterine bleeding or liver disease. Those are a few of the contraindications. But just knowing not to wait until your symptoms are severe. You don't have to wait until you've not had a menstrual cycle for a year, but that you can start early.
Yeah. It's so great that we're having these type of conversations, Kim, because I know that even 10 years ago, I don't think there would ever be conversations around this and what women go through. And I think it's so important, not only from the physical perspective, but really emotionally, mentally, what's happening in our bodies. You look at it from a scientific perspective. I look at it also from a mindset perspective. It's very overlapping, which I think is so important because, as we talked about earlier, that it's all about our mindset and also that really affects everything. So really, really interesting. And also you have this podcast, this awesome podcast called Midlife Wellness NP Podcast. And you do, I think, maybe you can share us what the aim of the podcast is, and also if there's any particular episodes that maybe our listeners can tune into that you especially enjoyed.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Really, it's just overall anything that pertains to our health, right? Whether it's psychological issues, physical issues, hormones. I've talked to people about everything. Like we talked about, reinventing our life at midlife. So anything and everything related to midlife and beyond. And a few of the most recent episodes that have been really helpful for women is the one with Dr. Felicia Gersh. She's an integrative hormone OBGYN. And her episode was really, really great. We covered a lot of ground on hormone therapy, benefits, risks, and how to do it and all that good stuff. And really popular. And then the other one was also rather interesting with the hormone pharmacist, Steve Goldring. His channel is the Simple Hormones. And so he's a pharmacist that studies hormones. And so he's really big. It's funny. I was telling him, you're a male and all you talk about is menopausal hormone therapy, but just having a pharmacist perspective. And it was a really great episode because the pharmacists, they're kind of our go-to for medicine. And so having his perspective was really great.
Sure. Amazing. That's wonderful. So Kim, if somebody is interested in learning more about your practice and where to find you and all that, please share.
To learn more about me and my practice, you can go to kimheffnerwellness.com and you'll learn about my practice. You can schedule a visit right there if you would like to as well. Midlife Wellness NP is my podcast. You can find it on any podcast platforms, YouTube, and on social media. I'm Kim Heffner Wellness. That's the name of my practice. You can find me there and follow me, and I would be grateful.
Wonderful. I would highly encourage you. I mean, you've got a wealth of knowledge and experience, so it's amazing that you're providing these services. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe you wanted to end with just final thought or maybe some advice for women who are listening. Most women who are listening are kind of going through these, whether it's something in their hearts that's telling them things have to change, they're going through physical or emotional transitions. Maybe their careers is changing and they're also dealing with physical and menopause, perimenopause, all of that. So there's a lot going on. So maybe from your perspective, just a couple of words, final words.
I think as a woman during these years, society can make it hard on us sometimes. The standards of society, and we go through all of these changes. We're getting older. We're confronting a lot of things and even changes just physically, but also our appearances. And that can take an impact on us. And I think what I've been really focusing on is just embracing myself and loving myself and just loving yourself at every age and just looking for the good and focusing on the good and really just accepting yourself and loving yourself at every age that you are, because in the big scheme of things, like health is more important than everything. And if we lost our health today, none of that other superficial stuff matters. Like I lost both of my parents young. And so my perspective is life is a gift. And while we're living, we have purpose and meaning and make use of it. Focus on the good. And this too shall pass. The hard things, they can be temporary, but maybe it's forever. And just keep looking forward and keep focusing on what serves you in your life.
I love that. I really love that. Loving myself at every age. That's perfect. That's good. Thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciated the conversation and congratulate you on what you do. And let's keep in touch. And thank you again for sharing your knowledge with the audience.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Thank you for having me.
I trust you enjoyed this informative and inspiring talk with Kim Heffner, and it helped you to understand the widespread effect of perimenopause and menopause on your health and how you can navigate these changes effectively. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, perimenopause and menopause affect more than just reproductive health. They have a wide-ranging impact on sleep, mood, and overall well-being, and it's important to be aware of these changes. Number 2, there are many myths surrounding menopause, and understanding the truth can help you feel more empowered to take control of your health. And number 3, by focusing on managing stress and improving sleep and addressing hormonal changes, you can better navigate this phase of life with less discomfort and more confidence. Thank you for being here, and as always, I'm here for you as you face this transition, any transition in your life, minor or major. because I know how disruptive a time this can be. But know there are so many amazing things ahead for you if you take charge now. To that end, I have a wonderful new resource for you to help you face each day with confidence. You can download my 28 Days to Building Confidence now, and it will give you wonderful, short, but powerful daily tips that you can incorporate into your life today to help you build your confidence. Confidence is key to taking our first step and then the next. So take a moment to download this informative guide now. Links are in the show notes. And of course, for individual guidance, I'm available for you to discuss what particular things you are going through. Schedule a free breakthrough conversation with me, and for 45 minutes, we will go deeply into what you are facing and what options you have. And finally, if you'd like to be placed on my mailing list, I offer informative information weekly to help you navigate the many transitions in your life and career. Till next time, my friend, happy Thanksgiving again to my Canadian friends, and happy World Menopause Day.